Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, and you are watching me, Deb Burton, Executive Director of RI Elder Info, and the longtime host of Friday Friends, where every Friday I bring you guests who have information that you or someone you know needs to know about. So make sure you hit the like, the share, the bells, the whistles, all the cues in social media that say, hey, check this out. Because we are having a great conversation today with Cathy Andreozzi from the Tori, Lynn Andreozzi Foundation. It's very uplifting and heartwarming. So make sure that you help get the message out by doing all those social media cues and help people get connected to this amazing organization. Now, as you all know, RI Elder Info is a 501c3 nonprofit. We could not do this without the support of our sponsors. So a big thank you to Point 32 Health Foundation, United Healthcare, and of course, McCarthy Law. Here's a message from McCarthy Law.
Here at McCarthy Law, we practice in the areas of estate planning, long-term care planning, elder care law, and residential real estate. Our focus is really on providing peace of mind to our clients.
If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with our office, you can feel free to reach out to us at 401-541-5540. You can also reach out via website at www.mccarthylawri.com. You also should check out our social media, both on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for some helpful tips and tricks.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much. Good morning to you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're able to come on today. So can you share with everybody, what is the Tori Lynn Foundation?
So the Tori Lynn Andreozzi Foundation is a small grassroots nonprofit that's based in Rhode Island and that has national reach. In 2003, my daughter went from being a vibrant 12-year-old with normal milestones to one who was rendered quadriplegic and lived in a minimally conscious state. We were so held by our community. At 12, my daughter's favorite movie was Pay It Forward. And so we vowed when it was our turn that that's what we would do. So the foundation works a lot with education and awareness and youth empowerment. We have all of these natural partners, but one of the most meaningful things that we do is interact with families that find themselves thrust into the world of the unknown, like our family was, helping to provide support, resources, and things to make their path a little bit easier.
What advice would you give to someone who has just been thrown into the role of caregiving for a loved one?
That is a tough one. I think early on, I received one of the best pieces of advice when I had no idea how to navigate this path. And a medical professional who had been called in said to me that I needed to remember my mental health was her mental health, and my physical health was her physical health. I understood the words, I understood the principle, but quite honestly, it took me some time to really embrace that. The thing that kept me going was, believe it or not, a quote from Bruce Lee. In an early interview, he said, when you pour water into the cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour it into the vase, it becomes the vase. Be water, my friend. And I say that to people because water is the most soothing, right, element. It's buoyant, it lifts you, it holds you, but it is also a force of nature, which can wipe the ground right out from under you. And I realized that I needed to be flexible and I needed to be like water. The trick was knowing when to roll with the time, the tide or when to race with the shore. But that flexibility allows you to be what you need to be when you need to be it.
I really love that analogy of water, because you're right. It is the most powerful force in nature. I mean, it can cut stone. So when you're in this situation that you had not anticipated and your whole world has been upended, how can families caring for a loved one, an older adult, how can they become strong advocates in the medical and home care settings?
It is so hard to find your voice. I mean, especially when it's not something that was part of a 5-year plan. You didn't train for this, right? I have to remember that it certainly wasn't a sprint, that it was a marathon. And so I got stronger as I went. I was intimidated by the medical community because I had never had such an intricate relationship or relied on them so much. But as much as I thought, I'm not the professional here, I was the professional when it came to my loved one. So as much as their medical knowledge, obviously was here, I had to remember that the knowledge of my loved one, that intricate knowledge, met that, if not, really was the hierarchy in this level. So being able to feel confident that you're bringing to the table a much needed element of that plan, I think is a good place to start.
Yeah, I love that. The medical professionals are experts in the medical piece, but you're the expert in your loved one. I get that. When I reached out to learn more about your organization, to really try to understand more about it, you wrote back something so profound, and I'm going to read it. I copied it and pasted it from your email. And you said, in the very beginning, it would have been easy to fall into and adopt an overwhelming aura of why or what if. It didn't take long to realize, had we chosen that path, we would be stuck in one place, as either of those questions are reliant on the answer. Sometimes there is no hard and fast answer. You talk about the power of pivoting and living in the what now. For caregivers of older adults facing cognitive decline or physical frailty, how can embracing that mindset make a difference in their daily life?
That was the overwhelming feeling in the very beginning. What if? What if we could have changed it? And that is paralyzing. That prevents you from moving forward. And the action of what now helps. So trying to think of how I can best describe that. One of the things that is paralyzing too is when we have a choice that we have to make. Mm-hmm. And, we've done our research and we still can't decide what is best. Do we go left or do we go right? You have to trust yourself that you've done that research, that you are the expert on your loved one. And you have to realize that making a choice, if you decide to go right, that's the best choice that you could have made at that moment. Doesn't mean that down the line you might not have to kind of reconfigure that choice a little bit. But action is going to propel you, and it will either tell you if it's absolutely the right choice or if you need to be flexible and you need to rethink it and tweak it a little bit. It helps you move down the line. Otherwise, we stagnate.
Absolutely. You kind of adjust your sails for the course that you're on.
Yes.
Yeah. So caregiving can take a toll on physical and mental health. Can you share what finally helped you prioritize your own well-being and why that's so vital for caregivers?
As I said, intellectually, I knew the advice that doctor was giving me was necessary. But it's a really tight balance that you walk, right? And it's hard to find time for everything. So we prioritize ourselves less. There was one particular incident where I was, quite honestly, we were going to a vigil. And I was a little anxious about all of the emotions that would bring up. And I noticed that my daughter was really beside herself. She seemed, she certainly wasn't at her base level. I mean, obviously she couldn't communicate with me, but her verbal cues told me that she was in distress, and I couldn't figure it out. When we got to the vigil, I settled, and I saw people that understood what I was going through. It was, just the knowing glance of another mother's heart that understood, and I grounded myself. That anxiety lessened, and I suddenly realized that my daughter was comfortable, that she was at her baseline again. And that was the first time it really hit me that she was a sponge, and that everything that I was feeling, she was absorbing. And so it put me back on the priority list. And I also then realized that the more I took care of myself, I obviously had more energy. I had more clarity in my thinking. And I felt like my improvement in quality of life certainly made an improvement in her quality of life as well. It's just giving ourselves the permission to do that.
I think that's so important. And it's interesting to hear the Bruce Lee quote about the pouring of the water. And sometimes I feel like we think of it as us receiving it, not necessarily realizing we may also be the water that is pouring into someone else.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the Tori Lynn Andreozzi Foundation is built on 4 words: choices, moments, courage, and hope. How can these principles guide caregivers of older adults as they navigate the difficult decisions and emotions and all of that unknown terrain?
Yes. Yeah. So I always say it's recognizing there is a choice in every moment, finding the courage to make a difference, sustaining hope for the future. So going back to what I said a little earlier, choices. There are so many choices to make along the way. And I mean, sometimes they truly can be life or death choices, but we have to, take comfort that we got this, and we have to make the choices. We know we'll make the choices that are right for our loved one. I would have loved to have made choices that involved my daughter being able to pick out a prom dress, or the choice of what would she name her first child. Those choices weren't available to me. So I had to learn to live in the moment. I would never forget the child my daughter was prior to the accident, but I also knew and loved the child that she was in this moment as well. So I had to meet the moments. Moments became really important. So remembering that we might not have the moments that we would have wanted with our elder parents, with our spouse, but the moments that we do have are just as profound and meaningful. And, there's a lot of courage that you need to live a caregiving life. It's true. I always say it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
but it is for those whose heart is full of love. And while it doesn't take courage to love, sometimes it takes courage to make those hard decisions, but trust that they're always made from that love. Hope. I know that it would have been so easy some days to say, we're going to skip therapy today. I was always afraid that if I didn't have hope that my daughter would get better, I wouldn't act as, treat as, seek out therapies as if she would. And then it would become a reality and she really wouldn't get better. So hope really fueled us. That is like the biggest word in my toolkit. It's what helped to propel us to what now? The hope that things would get better. One of the things I did for myself, I'll just jump back a minute, for part of my self-care was I used to love to act. And I had the opportunity to be in a show. I decided to give myself permission to do something that felt good for me. And it was an ensemble. And in an ensemble cast, the actions, the words, the thoughts of all propel all forward. So that was part of the way we cared for Tori too, as an ensemble, the team that we built around us. And one of the characters in this particular show, it was a bunch of Southern sassy women. And when they met barriers along the way, she would simply say, "We ain't done yet." And that was the first thing I took home to my daughter from like a rehearsal, because I said to her, "Girl, we have been on a long journey, but we ain't done yet." And just keeping that in mind, that helped fuel that hope for us on the journey.
I love that. We ain't done yet.
We ain't
Did
done.
Did you find on the journey that it was hard to ask for help and to receive that help?
Yeah. I had always been someone who navigating a system that I had never been part of was truly difficult. And so we kept forging our own way. You know, I kept thinking like we're beating down, you know, the weeds in front of us. But then I realized how much I appreciated when people asked me for help. And why should I be the only one who gets that joy? So I did. I learned to open up. And, you know, all through my life, my work life prior, I remember being part of like United Way campaigns and things. And I remember one time talking to a group of employees and saying, you know, and you know, it's not a handout. Can't we all use a hand up once in a while? Yeah, and we can use a hand up. And you could always vow to pay it forward after you ask for help.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a question for you. Is the Tori Lynn Andreozzi Foundation a nonprofit?
Yes, we are. We are a nonprofit. And we've, a lot of times I say we're kind of a pastor foundation because we help a lot of other foundations as well. Partnership is great. We don't live in a silo. It takes a village to make it all happen.
Absolutely. Now, if people are watching, how can they support the work that you're doing? Do you need volunteers? Do you need donations? Do you need them to hit share and like and all of those social media cues? Or if somebody wants to pay it forward, how do they do that?
Yeah, actually, you know, if they could check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram for the Tori Lynn Andreozzi Foundation. Also, you know, you can check out our website, which is ToriLynnFoundation.org. But right now we're in the midst of a Pay It Forward campaign. As I said, that was one of Tori's favorite movies. And so we just ask people random acts of kindness. Tori always fought for those who, she fought to level the playing field. Let me put it that way. At 12 years old, she was really aware of that. From time to time, we do need volunteers. Some of our Pay It Forward initiatives we can list. We're collecting for a lot of organizations right now. We'll be rolling those all out. And truly, a lot of times people think when they do something for others, they think monetary. You can give a smile. You can give that hand up. You can hold open a door. Giving of your time is something really important. People remember that. People remember when you take the time to see them. So that would be a great way, Deb, for people to support us.
What a wonderful way to honor your experience and your daughter's life. Now, the website is Tori, TORILYNN foundation.org. And they can call you at the 401-480-2277.
Yes.
And it's info@ToriLynnFoundation.org if they had more questions.
It is. Yes. That's how you can find us.
This is awesome. Cathy, I'm so glad that you had the time to take to join us on Friday Friends today. I think you have a very powerful message for caregivers across the age spectrum to keep going.
Yes. We're all in this together.
Amen to that. Everybody has those choices to choose hope and move forward.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Deb, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Everybody, this is an amazing foundation that really is grassroots, started from a sad spot, but this young woman's life is being remembered by all of us paying it forward, by coming together and helping each other out. Remember, it's choices, moments, courage, and hope. We all have choices to make in life. Some are more significant than others, and their foundation strives to empower people to make thoughtful choices, choices that align with their future wants and needs, as those choices will ultimately dictate their moments. So check out the Tori Lynn Andreozzi Foundation and reach out to Cathy if you have questions, concerns. It is a wonderful opportunity to get the resources we all need as we become caregivers. So everybody, I am really grateful that you joined me here today. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Please, in the meantime, be well and be kind.
If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.